Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day. Today we have Marlia Finch with us to talk about the equipment grant applications and program. This is being recorded and will be sent out afterwards. If you have questions during today's session, you can put those in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. Marlia, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Randa. Again, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Marlia Finch. I am the Supplemental Programs Manager and Special Projects here with the department, and we will get started on the equipment grant application. So without further ado, we will continue on. All right, so these are the priorities of the department, and as always, we fall under that student readiness priority. So that's Tennessee Public Schools will be equipped to serve the academic and non-academic needs of all students in their career paths. So we certainly do help serve those non-academic needs in their career path. And our mission statement for the School Nutrition Office is develop extraordinary school nutrition professionals such as yourself and provide strategies to increase consumption of healthy school meals. And on our agenda today, we will go over the purpose of the equipment grant, the funding, the grant details, overview of the application process, what we look for while we're scoring these applications, important dates, and of course, I will take any questions at the end that you may have. And the purpose of this grant is to distribute the $30 million by the Fiscal Year Consolidated Appropriations Act to state agencies to competitively award equipment assistance grants to eligible schools and local education agencies that participate in the National School Lunch Program. So USDA had $30 million to provide the different states, and Tennessee, we received $682,999. Yes, 999 to award those funds out this year. I just want to note that this is drastically different than last year. Last year we had more money that was provided to the state, so we were able to provide more equipment grants across the board. So this year it will be definitely different since we have maybe a quarter of what we were given last year. Last year we were around $2 million, and this year you see that we're at that $682,999. So there will be a big difference on how many sites we can award this year. So I wanted to go ahead and be very transparent with everyone in that regard. And the whole idea behind the equipment grants is to enable SFAs and LEAs participating in the National School Lunch Program to purchase equipment with a greater value than $1,000, needed to serve healthier meals, improve school safety, and to help support the establishment, maintenance, or expansion of the National School Lunch and/or Breakfast Program. All right. Now that we have that general overview of the grant and where the funding came from, let's get down into the grant details. So there are certain stipulations that are tied to this grant when we are awarding these funds. So we will give priority to schools that have not received this grant in the past. So typically we look at the past 3 years because we do realize there are smaller SFAs that do apply for this grant annually, and they only have a certain amount of schools. So we keep it around the 3-year mark to make sure that we can spread funds equitably across the state. And we will give priority to SFAs with no or lower excess balance. And we put the stipulation in because it's very dependent on how many schools we have to apply this year and how much money they request and how much money we can give out. So we will be looking at excess balance, but that is a last consideration just based on how many people do apply for this grant. Other selection criteria that we have on our rubric when our review team do review these applications include the age of the food service equipment or lack of appropriate items. So if your kitchen does not have a steamer and you need a steamer, we will take that into consideration. That's why we encourage a very strong narrative for these applications. We also look at the ability of food service equipment to increase the efficiency of the program that you're running, food storage and distribution and service. So does it make your program better? We also look at the availability of existing state and local funds for equipment purchases. So do you have funds available at the local level to cover your equipment costs? Strategies for adopting lunchroom changes that provide more convenience and appeal to students. So are you revamping your cafeteria? And this will help you do that. We do consider this as an element to your application. And then also opportunities to realize meaningful impacts on nutrition and quality of meals. So is this new equipment going to provide higher quality meals to your students? All right, so all the grant details come straight from the USDA, so things we have to consider as we are awarding these grants. So now we are going to focus on the application considerations that we look at as we receive your applications. So in order to be considered for an equipment grant, you do have to fill out an application, and you do have to fill out a complete application to be considered. And your application will need to be completed for the following focus areas with funding goals in mind. So when you see this application, these focus areas are listed on the application to consider as you are writing the narrative for your application. So the focus areas include equipment that improves the quality and nutrition of school meals, equipment that improves the safety of food served in the school meal programs. For example, if your hot and cold holding equipment does not keep temps, that would be a food safety concern. So that might be a reason why you would need a new piece of equipment. Your dishwashing equipment isn't working right. So maybe it's not getting hot enough for that sanitation to be covered. That would be a reason why you need new equipment. And obviously, refrigeration, milk coolers, freezers, those all improve food safety. Also, we look for a focus area of the availability of existing state and local funding, just like we've mentioned before in the grant details, what the USDA is looking for. We're also looking for that in your application. The age of existing food service equipment you have, or lack of appropriate items, or if this equipment will just be a better improvement to overall efficiency of your food service operations, whether that be in energy or in labor. We consider equipment used to improve or expand the participation of National School Lunch and/or Breakfast Program. So, for example, equipment for serving meals in a non-traditional setting or to better utilize cafeteria space, coolers for grab-and-go salads or sandwiches. Equipment used to create program efficiencies and to ensure program integrity. And also strategies for adopting lunchroom changes that provide more convenience and appeal to students. So again, that kind of helps to drive that participation. All right, so now you know what's kind of in the application. Let's go over the application process. So the application process includes that, yes, the application must be completed in its entirety to be considered for funding. So that includes all the signature pages as well. So when you submit that application to us, you want to make sure everything is completed, including those 2 signatures that we require for this application. So the application is broken down into 4 parts, and the first part is your basic SFA, LEA, contact name, contact information, city, state, zip code. Obviously, we know the state. So just that very basic information is part 1. Part 2 is the site application. So which school site is receiving this piece of equipment? You will fill that part out. And that includes the specifics related to the equipment purchased. So if you are wanting to purchase a serving line, you will have those bid specs in part 2 for us. If you're purchasing something smaller that you got quotes for, you will have that in part 2. So all your equipment specs will be included in part 2. Spec sheets are great to attach to your application as an attachment. That just shows that you've done your due diligence and research for this equipment item before you've applied for some equipment funds to help offset those costs. Part 3 is the complete narrative section of the application. So to be considered for a grant award, you must address how the equipment purchased will help meet at least 3 of those following focus areas that we kind of highlighted before. We'll go into it a little bit more right here. So minimum 3 that you must address in the narrative section. I will say that most applicants will address 5 or 6, but minimum is 3 that you have to focus on in that narrative. And that just shows that you've thought out more than just, oh, I need equipment. Can I have some money? So the narrative portion helps us to paint a better picture as to why this equipment will help your program. So the minimum of 3 focus areas can include any of the following. So equipment that improves the quality and nutrition of the school meals. It improves the safety of the food served for your programs, the availability of existing state and local funding, the age of existing equipment you may have, or the fact that you don't have the appropriate equipment, equipment used to improve or expand participation in the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program, strategies for adopting lunchroom changes that provide more convenience and appeal to students, equipment used to create program efficiencies and ensure program integrity. So again, 3 of these items, great. That's the minimum. But I will say most people do touch on most, if not all of these focus areas. All right, so that was part 3. Now part 4 of the application process are the assurances. Remember to include the director of schools and of course your school nutrition supervisor's signature on this section of the application. Here is a screenshot snip. That isn't completely the full snip, but that's okay. It's just a 1-pager with 2 signature lines that you'll just have those signatures filled out. And then you are signing off that you agree to all the assurances of compliance. Those are the regulations listed there. And again, everything is in your application packet that we will send out with this recap email and also in the weekly update. So be on the lookout for the application. It is coming out. So now that you know what the application looks like, don't worry, towards the end of the training here, I will pull up the actual application and we can sort through so you can see what is coming to your inbox shortly. So that's the application, and here are the scoring criteria that we consider as the review team reviews each and every application. So number 1 is the application packet complete? That's the first thing we look for. And then part 2 is the school site application and equipment details there. Again, do we have all the information to know which school site this equipment is going to? And also, do we know what piece of equipment you're looking for. So do you have your spec sheet? Do you have the quotes that you received? Do you have the bid documents that you've put out? And then obviously the narrative part 3, we look for those 3 focus areas at minimum. Did you address those at least 3 of the focus areas? If you've addressed more, great. That just bolsters your narrative portion. And then also, really, did you hone in as to if there's limited equipment resources on your application? We kind of need to know from your perspective if there's any available funding at the local level or other resources that could cover the cost of these equipment grants or these equipment items. That way we can make sure that we are spreading the love as much as possible to be able to provide awards to as many sites as possible with our funds that we have. All right, other scoring criteria items we consider is to receive full points for part 3. So that narrative part is, did you provide an in-depth answer to at least 3 of the focus areas? We do ask for your free and reduced percentage or CEP percentage. Purely based on reporting purposes, it does not impact your score at all. And then remember to review the pre-approved equipment list if needed. So the equipment list items that you can purchase with federal funds without getting our approval, it is on our website. I will pull it up later in this presentation to remind you where you can find it. And that's really a good list of equipment items that you could purchase with these equipment grant funds. Based on your application on your intended equipment purchases, please do not purchase equipment with the assumption that you will receive an equipment grant award. So again, if you are already planning to purchase these items, great, but do not assume you will be awarded equipment grant funds, and you might not have funds available to cover your equipment needs if you do not get funded through this grant. So please be aware of that. Just because you apply does not mean you will be awarded, because this is a competitive grant process, and you see that we only have about a quarter of the amount of funds to provide and distribute to you guys this year. Based off of last year, we had much more than we typically do, or more on our typical allotment this year. And again, we do consider if there are other equipment grant opportunities available for you. And we want you to be aware that there are other equipment grant opportunities available through other organizations. So just be cognizant of the various stipulations and requirements for each grant opportunity. So if you apply for our equipment grant or another equipment grant, for example, our equipment grant does not require an SFA to employ a supervisor for any specific amount of time in order to be eligible to apply for this grant. So if you are a new supervisor and you do need a piece of equipment, you are eligible to apply. We do understand there are other equipment grants out there that say your school nutrition supervisor must be employed for at least a year. We do not have that stipulation for this grant. So just be mindful of all the equipment grants you may be applying for. All right. So you have your applications, our scoring criteria. All right, so what happens if you are awarded? So during your performance period, which would be February 16th, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, we will ensure that each person that is, each site that is awarded the equipment grant meets the eligibility requirements before you're awarded. And then also provides assurances of compliance with the program implementation and reporting requirements. You appropriately use the equipment grant funds, and you implement activities within the established timeline. So we will ensure that you purchase that equipment and get it installed all within the performance period. A key piece of program accountability with this grant is simply keeping records. So keep up with all of your specs that you've sent out to get quotes with, all your bid documents that you used, all invoices pertaining to this piece of equipment, and that goes for the actual equipment, that goes for installing. Make sure you keep all of that document. Because we will need those documents to get reimbursed. Further on that in a minute. So equipment grant records must maintain the following. So your description of the equipment, the serial number of the equipment that you purchased and got installed, where you purchased it, who holds the title, acquisition date, the cost of the equipment, the location, use, and condition of the equipment, and any ultimate disposition data, including the date of disposal and sale price of the equipment. So if you had to get rid of anything, in the event the equipment is disposed of or sold, you must keep that. And note that the recipient shall follow the department's equipment disposition guidance and procedures. So if you need those procedures, you must request them and we will send them to you. And if you are awarded the grant, you shall cooperate with any evaluation of the program by providing the department requested data and access of records. So if there's any audit or anything and we need those records, we will ask them from you so you can provide them. Also, as a subawardee, you shall cooperate with any as needed on-site financial or technical reviews and audits at any time during the term of the agreement. So pretty standard school nutrition monitoring requirements. And then the awardee shall make all records pertaining to activities under the grant available for audit purposes, whether that's from us or other audits. All right, and we will touch on the procurement of this equipment from grant funds as required for any national school lunch program. You are required to follow all federal, state, and local procurement laws when purchasing your equipment. As with all federal grants, procurement regulations can be found at 7 CFR 210.21 and 2 CFR Part 200.317 through 326. All of our procurement regulations apply. Equipment grant funds must be tracked separately from other school nutrition funds, just because it's a different funding stream. And equipment competitively procured using these grant funds must be necessary, reasonable, and allocable, just like any other program funding that we provide you. All your purchases must be necessary, reasonable, and allocable. All right. So we know what you can buy with these funds, what you cannot buy and purchase with these equipment grant funds. Non-commercial equipment unrelated to your meal operations. Commercial equipment not conducive to existing kitchen and cafeteria infrastructure. So do not try to purchase something that will not fit into your kitchen as it currently stands. These equipment grant funds do not cover administrative costs. And equipment grant funds may not be commingled with other grant funds and other program funds. So it's a standalone grant as is to purchase equipment. All right, so how do you receive your funds that you are awarded? So after you apply and receive your grant award for the quoted cost of the piece of equipment, so when you submit your application, you are requesting X amount of dollars. Say you got a quote for the equipment that you would like to purchase, and it is $50,000. So you request $50,000 from us as your equipment grant award. Keep that in mind. So $50,000 is your equipment, $50,000 you've requested from us. So you are responsible for paying the full cost of the equipment and the installation. After installation, training, and the equipment is deemed operational, that's when you will submit the required documentation to us to be reimbursed. So that is an itemized invoice, copy of a canceled check, or any bid documents used to procure the equipment. Don't worry, you will be submitting that to us, and if we need more documentation to support that reimbursement claim, we will ask for it, and we can work with you one-on-one to make sure we have the appropriate documents to back up your requested reimbursement. And again, if the invoice total is more than the original bid quote or grant award for that piece of equipment and installation, the SFA will pay the difference. So thinking back to that $50,000 that you've been awarded, and it ended up costing $75,000 to buy the equipment and get it installed, you will only be reimbursed for that $50,000 that you were awarded. So just making that abundantly clear. If it ends up being more expensive than what you are awarded, you will be covering the cost of the difference. And only actual cost of approved equipment will be in reverse. So again, not to exceed the original bid amount or the grant award. But that's also works in reverse. So if you were awarded $50,000 and it ended up only being $35,000 because you got it on sale, great, awesome. We will cover that $35,000. We will not give you more than what the equipment and installation actually cost. All right. So now that we got all the big items and kind of what the reimbursement looks like, how you get awarded, how much you're awarded, here are some important dates. So today is our grant application overview training. And this week you will get the grant application, whether that be through your weekly updates or a recap email after this training. The recap email will include the recording and also the application, and I will even give you guys that equipment list that we'll cover here in a moment. And then the applications are due by February 16th. So that is a Friday of 2024. Please be sure to have the subject line as 2023 NSLP equipment grant. That way it will be directed to Lindsay and myself so we can get it into the pile quicker. All of the instructions are also on the application. So if you forget, oh, the subject line needs to be this, don't worry, it's in the application. March 1st of 2024, we hope to have all the award letters out, so you will know whether or not you've been awarded for the equipment grants. And then obviously September 30th of 2025, all your documentation is required to be submitted to us for reimbursement. So that's the end of that performance period, and we will have you reimbursed hopefully by then. All right. So let's see, here is my contact information if you need that, and I will answer questions prior to asking for you guys to fill out the survey. And let's see here, I see one hand up. Angela, can you type your question into the chat, or if not, I can take you off mute, hopefully. Okay, you can type, perfect. Give her a moment to get her question typed into the chat, and then we will get that answered. Okay, so the fourth part of that application is just the assurances. It's basically saying, yes, you agree to all the regulations you need to follow to be awarded this equipment grant, and also it includes the signature. So your signature and your directors of school signature. That's part 4 of that application. All right, cool. If no questions, I will pull up the application so you can physically see it or visually see it here before you get it in your email. So if this raises any more questions, I'm happy to help with that. Let me get it pulled up here. All right, you should be able to see the application. I have it zoomed in so you can see it. So it looks like any other year's equipment grant. It has the grant information up top. It has the submission process. So again, the due date. So 1 application per piece of equipment per school. So if you want to apply for 2 pieces of equipment for your school district at different schools, that's great. Just make sure each site has its own application. And I will tell you, so we tend to only be able to award 1 piece of equipment per SFA. So if you have multiple applications in, that's fine. But if your SFA is awarded, it will only be for 1 piece of equipment. So here is part 1 of the application, your basic contact information. Part 2 is that school site level. So where is this piece of equipment going? So we need the school site information. So is it replacing something? Is it a new piece of equipment? That sort of thing. And obviously all your spec information would be great here. And then the estimated total cost. This estimated total cost is what you are actually requesting as your equipment grant award. Then part 3 goes into the narrative, and it lists out those focus areas. Again, minimum of 3 to be touched on, but most people touch on much more than 3 when they are filling out this application. And then down to part 4, your assurance statement with your signature and the signature of your directors of schools, saying that you will adhere to all of your federal regulations. And then that is the equipment grant application. So there are 2 spots for signatures, so make sure that you don't miss either of those spots. And I also said I would pull up that equipment list. Let's pull that up real quick. Gotta love technology. All right, so this approved equipment list can be found on our website, and I am happy to plug that in real quick for you into the chat. Okay, if you want to follow along with finding this on our website, I did give you the link in the chat. You just click that link, and then it's in the very top section, just the startup forms. It says equipment approval list. And then once you click that, this will pop up and you have the approved equipment list. So items that you could purchase with the equipment grant application funds if you are awarded. So think about food prep equipment, so mixers, slicers, food processors, ovens, tilt skillets, broilers. We see a lot of tilt skillets through the application process. We see a lot of steamers. Again, refrigerators, freezers, that sort of thing. Cool serving equipment, so salad bars, food tables, hot food tables, warming cabinets. We see quite a bit of those during equipment grant application season. So again, here is a whole list of equipment items that could be purchased with equipment grant funds. Okay, it's a good little cheat sheet for you. Again, I will have this in the recap email as well. All right, so we've seen the application, we've seen the approved equipment list items. Are there any other questions? And again, if you come up with questions as you are working on the application, please feel free to reach out to myself or Lindsay Paul, and we can help you fill out the application to make sure you have everything. All right, cool. Again, there's my contact information if you need me for anything equipment grant related or anything else. I'm happy to help you as I can. And if I don't have any other questions or anything, if you don't mind just taking a moment to fill out our evaluation survey for this training, you can use the QR code, or I also have a link I will put in the chat here in 2 seconds. I'll give you a moment to look that over, and I'll wait a few minutes to see if there are any last-minute questions. All right. Well, I will not hold you guys up any longer. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to learn more about the equipment grant applications. We will get a recording of this training along with the PowerPoint, the application, and that equipment list out to you as soon as we can. And if you have any questions between now and then, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to assist. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for